Hey guys, Lantern here again. In my quest to bring all the popular archetypes of Zoo and what it plays against and how to successfully play against these decks, I will show you some videos that win, some videos that I don't win, but videos to be learned from at least. So I'm excluding a bunch of like minute other tests that I've got. I'll update with each of these videos. I'll update how my deck has changed over time, as well as what I'm currently running. Just a quick review. And a quick review, I'm running your normal Gruul Zoo. Explosive, quick aggro with a white splash, specifically for Loom Lion, Thalias, and Path to Exile. And then an Aven Mind Sensor in the sideboard, as well as another Path. It's been showing me decent results. I like the stability. I don't necessarily fall apart to the decks that I can't outrace like other Gruul Zoo does, but I am a little slower, just about half a turn slower. But sometimes even a half a turn slower in Gruul Zoo is still way too fast. And those are the couple things I'm going to be talking about here. We've got a couple matches here. The first one's going to be against Geterdungrove, I guess is the deck type, right? Because back in Standard, that's what it was called. Green uses Dismember for killing stuff, because green doesn't normally have its mono green. Lots of big fatties. All the fatties. It sort of runs Gruul Zoo's game plan, the most efficient creatures, but not efficiently, because it wants to sort of skip turn 2, go straight to turn 3, drop like a Dungrove Elder or Thrund or whatever's big and costs 3 mana and manages to win. I'm not a big fan of the deck, but some people are. Some people like their mono green paths to victory. Dungrove Elder, here I will say this, for mono green fatties, mono green dinosaurs, they have lots of creatures who like to hurt people and some really big butts. And as you'll see in this video, Zoo's game plan, when it can do control-y sort of things if it needs to. But if it does not need to, its game plan is generally race. If it doesn't know what it is, it'll race it. If it doesn't understand its combo, it'll race it. If it's got bigger dudes, it'll race it. And that's my game plan here. And you got to remember that when you play Zoo, is that your plan A is to race. Your plan B is to do any smart, clever, cool thing you want to do. But your plan A is to constant pressure. And that's why Gruul Zoo wins games, is because it's constant pressure. A lot of people think that the deck is very dumb and is very autopilot, because all you do is turn dudes sideways. But that's not actually true. This deck does require thought about when you play certain things and when you bluff. A lot of the time, you're bluffing as an aggro player. You're pretending like you have the victory, even though you don't. Boundless confidence helps out a ton in this deck. So we end up playing with this guy, and we tie for the roll, and then I win. Going first is very good with this deck. I'm keeping a hand that I think is pretty cool against any deck that is got sort of weenies, because I've got 2 bolts, which are awesome, and I've got an explosive turn 2. And I've got the fetch land out just in case I need to. And I see him cast Llanowar Elves. Now, I'm assuming he is a elf deck, because that's the only other deck in my mind that's sort of mainstream enough that runs Llanowar Elves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find myself a mountain, and I'm going to kill the crap out of that Llanowar Elf. And I find myself a mountain because I've got access to a Sacred Foundry and a green source. I'm not going to need anything more than red. And I don't want his Llanowar Elves to get over its summoning sickness, because I'm afraid I'm going to find a what do you call it? I'm going to find a sort of that I'm going to find a archetype, or an elvish arch druid, and that's going to lead him to way too much mana. So I untap, I put my lands out, and I do my explosive turn 2. Burning Tree Emissary, for what it's worth, as much as I have gripes about it not being a Manamorphose and it not letting me play the burn I want to play right now. Makes explosive starts, man. It's free bear. It's the difference between me attacking for a 3 right now and me attacking for a 5. And I'm thinking I'm pretty good here if he's an elf deck, because he doesn't have any creatures on the board, and I'm about to put out a Domri Raid who's going to be repeatable removal against them, which is one of the reasons why he's in my deck specifically. With elves not turning out as big as I thought they would do because of Beck, although granted there has been a couple online things, I might be thinking about taking him out. Scavenging Ooze exists, and that's good. So I Domri, and I find myself a Burning Tree Emissary. It's not like I can cast that this turn, but it means whatever creature I draw next turn, if I draw a creature, and there's 1/3 or one half of a chance that it will, becomes awesome. And then I see here that he puts out a Leatherback Behemoth. Now I can take care of this thing. I go ahead and I can Domri and lose my 2 damage source and shock that with Domri, and then bolt it for the rest, which I think is probably a good idea. I don't know what this guy's doing. I want to assume that he doesn't have another one of those big motherfuckers in hand, but he ends up having it, and that sucks for me. But you're going to see most of this game is going to turn into me bluffing about my abilities here. And it's mostly about me doing the early game. And I only lose very, very closely in this game, just because I'm bluffing. Now, you can see I'm putting the constant pressure on him. I'm just giving him threats that he's got to deal with. I'm not sort of backing up. And again, that was awesome that I kill his creature, because that Miracle Revenge of the Haunted would have been bad business for me. So he's got another one out, and I'm not going to be able to kill that. And I've come to terms with that, especially with drawing fetch lands, that there's no way I can kill that. And my guys are just going to die. So the best thing I can do here is plus him and hope for a Rampager, which I don't get. I get another Ape. But what that tells me is that whatever he blocks, I can replace with an Ape at least. So I'm going to attack all out here. He's still going to have to take 4 damage, dropping him down to 8, which is still a good place to get him, especially if I can keep replacing my creatures with Domri. That's one of the cool things about Domri. Domri's drawn me 2 creatures now. He's already proved his worth as a Planeswalker for 3 mana. For 3 mana investment, I've drawn 2 cards. That's more than most blue decks can say. Not only have I cycled Domri, I've profited off of him. And I go up again because there's no use in trying to swing and kill one of his dudes, because at this point it's obvious he's playing big dudes, and the best option for me is to just be as aggressive as humanly possible. And I draw another fetch lane, which blows for me. You don't need this much fetch. You just need 3 tops, and you're good. So I'm going to swing all out here, because, again, I'm going to drop him down to 4, and that's good. That's good. It's meaning that he can't swing at me all out, because if he does, he'll die. So I may still lose my Domri, but Domri served his purpose. For 3 mana investment, I have drawn 3 cards. That's huge. That's way bigger than blue can say at this point. So he's got a blocker now who will get stronger when it blocks. And he can match me tit for tat, which is not good in my situation. But I'm not allowing him to swing all out. He's going to swing with this guy because he's realized 3 out of 3 I've drawn. It is not good for me to keep replacing every creature that I've got. Flint Hoofborer comes in to save my butt, gives me haste, and allows me to hit him down to 2. At this point, I can Pillar of Flame him to death. See how that constant pressure and bluff has given me a shot in a game that I shouldn't win? That's important with Sue, is that racing is really important. Once you've dedicated to overextending your board and racing, you can't tiptoe back on that. You have to make that commitment. And that was again reason why you got to say that aggro is sometimes smarter than it seems, because it really does depend on whether or not you have the kahunas and whether or not it's the right time to go super aggressive. Sometimes it's actually better to play the controlling game. If this was the elf matchup like I thought it was, I would have gone controlling. I would have stayed back and probably only swung with one creature, blocked my Domri and kept removing his key cards, and then slowly crapped out the victory. Now I'm just gonna fast forward here. I don't draw the I keep drawing lands, and I don't draw the burn that's necessary to win, or even the overrun that's important to win. So that's just what happens with this one, and that ends up happening. What I end up siding out is Pillar of Flames. I side out Pillar of Flames here, and I put in Vines of Vastwood, not because I'm expecting him to have any spot removal necessarily, but because I want to make my creatures bigger. That's the only way I can kill his big meat that he's going to throw in my way, or out aggro him, because I'll throw out on the creature that it is not blocked and then hit for 6 or something. As you can see here, this game's going to go by way faster. I believe he does not, he doesn't, he keeps a 1 land hand because he assumes he's safe with the Arbor Elf. And I keep a 1 land hand, and I keep a shifty hand, but I'm up 1, or I figure this seems like a good hand if I draw any mana. And keeping a 1 land hand, again, not necessarily the smartest move. You have to draw a land. And even the land I draw next turn is not necessarily the best land I get. But it's good enough to keep me going. I see that I've got 2 experimental ones, so if I do in fact draw the land and I can cast a Loom Lion, I'm in pretty good ability. If I can't and I put experiment 1 but I can cast 2 Loom Lions next turn or something like that, or Flint Hoof, I've still got a growing threat. And that's important. Again, these guys are basically Noctows. You want to cast them as soon as possible. So I draw a mountain here, which is great for me. A mountain's perfect. It doesn't necessarily, it's not what I need. I needed a fetch land to get a Sacred Foundry, but that's fine too. A mountain still will work. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cast the Experiment 1, but I'm willing to trade off my Experiment 1 with this Arbor Elf, because I don't want him to have mana ramp. Again, this deck always tries to skip turn 2 and goes to turn 3. So it's important to sort of like say, no, that's not what you're going to do here. He's got 2 mana available here, and he does not draw an extra land, but draws an Arbor Elf. So to move on to his Geterdungrove or his Harmonize and his Thrund, he's going to need to cast his Arbor Elf. He could cast Sky Slasher, but at best it trades with my creature next turn, so it's not a big deal. But I see this, and I draw a Bolt, and I see he missed his land drop, so I've got to capitalize on that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cast my Loom Lion, make these guys a 2/2, make it very unappealing for him to trade. So I can sort of threaten, and then swing with the threaten. And make him lose 4 life. Again, 4 life, turn 3, not bad. Slower, but not bad. But I bolt out his path to victory here and leave him mana deprived. Now I'm playing the control game here. Not only am I playing the aggro deck by switching it, I'm playing a little bit of a control game because I'm not letting him do what he needs to do. He gets a tapped land, that's not going to be fast enough. I've drew a Burning Tree Emissary, that's sweet. We're switching it full gear, pedal to the metal now. I've got the advantage here, I'm going to press it now. My 5 creatures to his 1 creature. And that's enough for him. He sees that he's got no path to victory here. Again, I gave him no chance. And he's going to keep a 2-lander here, 1 tapped. He's going to hope that his Arbor Elf survives this time, and I do believe it does. I mull because I get a no good lander. But what I end up getting here is 2 Rampagers, and 2 Rampagers will do a lot in this matchup. It's going to go ahead and make sure at least one of my creatures survives and keeps doing damage, and will set up his bad blocks for his mediocre dudes. Now, really, you got to look at what this deck is doing. It's trying to drop big, beefy beef, but ends up, if that beef goes away or does not happen, it ends up with a bunch of mana ramp dudes that are 1/1s, and this deck does not care if you jump with a 1/1. It will eat your face if you jump with a 1/1. So what he's done here is he's allowed me to, I even have Vines of Vastwood mana. Best thing I can do here is to swing with this guy in case he's got some weird mutagenic growth pump. He's going to double block or something. drop the land, take the damage, and then trample through if I have to. I probably won't. I realized I was an idiot right there, and I made a misplay. That this is got to be tapped, and I got to take the damage. But it's not my fault. It's 2 a.m. So I had to redo that. So I cast the Flint Hoofbore instead. Seems fine. Realistically, he couldn't really do anything with that either. He might have immunogenic growth, but then his hand is much, much less scary. So he's got 4 mana here, but nothing really to do with it. He's got a Great Staple Stag, which would scare me if I was Geist or fairies from back in the day, but I am not. His Great Staple Stag does nothing. It blocks my Curd Ape. I make it bigger. It tramples over, and that's that. So it's a little annoying that I'm not allowed to play my Burning Tree Emissary or my Loom Lion. But keeping my creatures alive is more relevant to me. He flashes in a Sky Splasher. Not that big of a deal. Geterdungrove comes in. And that's not scary. It's not. And he's got a mana to Treetop Village. So overall, he's sort of putting all his eggs in one basket, hoping that it'll be enough to stop me. Again, I told you I got the Gore Clan Rampager, and I swing. Now, in retrospect, I was just very confident in my win. I should have put the Stomping Ground out, paid for it, and then paid the Gore Clan Rampager with both Stomping Grounds, and then cast Loom Lion off of the other one. I did not, and that was a mistake. I saved 2 life, but it would have been better to have a board presence. And yes, I trade with his land, and that's no longer a worry, and I kill his Dungrove Elder before it gets any bigger. And he's left with a Sky Slasher. Now, he might think he's got the win here, because he's left with 2 mana ramp dudes and a Sky Slasher, which is pretty good. But it's not to be, because I still have 3 cards in hand. He's down to 6 life, which means it's not a good place for him to be at right now, and he's starting to attack all out. Here I draw more stuff to do, but I want to attack so that I have the Vines of Vastwood. I figure Heap Chump blocks, no big deal to me. He loses a card. He loses a mana. If he doesn't block, I get to Vines of Vastwood him, and that's exactly what I do for Xaxes, and he's dead. So there's your verse, the Geterdungrove deck. I hate that name, by the way. I just use it because there's no other better name to use. I suppose you could say mono green fatties. While we're waiting for this to start up, I'm big on names. I really enjoy clever names that have flavor, or like names that denote a past history. Like, that's why I prefer Affinity over robots, because robots just sounds like, oh, it's robots. I understand it's like a flavor name, but Affinity denotes where the deck came from, its roots. Which is why I don't call it Gruul Aggro or Gruul Blitz. It's called Gruul Zoo because it's based off of the Zoo deck, which has been the one that does it the mostly. And not to mention, it's got a lot of furry creatures in it, so it is a zoo in there. So it's a zoo deck. So Geterdungrove is a better name than Mono Green Aggro. But it's their Mono Green mid-range. It's a mid-range deck. But let's just assume that it will get a better name one of these days. Alright, so, and P.S., whoever Vala-A23 is, he's a cool player. He let me, he closed his lobby for me so that I could have this recording of the game quicker, so I could present a double feature here. I didn't keep the last hand because there wasn't wasn't a good enough mana base for me to rock it. He's gonna keep it. He's probably feeling pretty good because he's got a bunch of discard spells. Now, for future reference, I didn't know that he was a gifts deck. I've come to the conclusion that he's a gift deck. I thought he was on the 8-rack train, which is cool because 8-rack is one of the decks that I'm trying to like sort of push into the meta right now, because he just had so much discard. But I was gonna assume that he was an 8-rack deck, mostly because I didn't see any other colors from him until later. I did eventually see Hollowed Fountain when he casted it, and I assumed that Hollow Fountain was something weird. Maybe that he was mostly that he was some kind of weird Esper deck. Like I've seen teachings around, so I assumed he was like a teachings deck later. I didn't know he was a gifts deck. If I saw that he had, I could have put it together if I had a little bit more time. But sometimes when you play so fast with Zoo, you don't necessarily get to see the big picture. So I didn't see that he was a gifts deck. Features Deathrite Shaman now. That's one of the things they do to stay alive for longer and use it as mana ramp. I bolt the Deathrite Shaman because Deathrite Shaman, no good. I don't want him discarding one of my creatures or something and then gaining life off of it. Nor did I want him to have the mana ramp. I thought he was Jund at this point because of the swamp. But when he cracks it for another basic swamp, I start to think he's 8-rack, and then when he puts out the Hollow Fountain, I start to think he's teachings. I don't necessarily think he's gifts. But I'm speeding off the gates, as you saw here. I've got Curd Apes out here. Curd Apes, man, they're doing the best things. They're doing monkey business. So he Inquisitions here, and I show him the Gore Clan Rampager, and I'm like, well, you can't have that. Here's your Pillar of Flame. You took it. There you go. Enjoy your Pillar of Flame. And he's going to crack this for a Thoughtseize. And the Thoughtseize is going to snare my Gore Clan Rampager. And, you know, that's okay. Because Gore Clan deals 2 damage more if I didn't have anything to do next turn. So it's okay. That's a fine trade for me. Thoughtseize. He's basically saving 2 life. And I ask him if he's an 8-rack deck here, because I assume he's 8-rack. I've just been playing 8-rack all the time. But again, man, Curd Apes do monkey business, dude. They're up to no good. 4 damage a turn is not something to sneeze at, especially when I've only invested 2 mana into it. So I keep the Arid Mesa here because I think he's an 8-rack deck. And when he drops the Hollow Fountain, I'm less believing that. But he's still it's still baiting the discard. I've got nothing to do with it. I could play it next turn if I needed to. There's no real reason to. So there's your Arid Mesa, dude. Enjoy your Thoughtseize. He's like, oh, that's fine. I'm like, no, you still lose life off of it. You've turned yourself from a 3-turn clock to a 2-turn clock if you don't do anything. I draw. I put out the Loom Lion, or I'm gonna put out the Loom Lion, because I figure I'm a little hesitant to put out the Loom Lion because I don't want to overextend my board too much and then die when he's so close to being dead because he's at 4 life. But I figure if he puts any form of chump block out there, which is probably more reasonable than him holding a wipe card right now, then that's where the Loom Lion's going to matter if it was in play or not. And I'd rather not give him extra turn. So I say, you know what? Screw it. You're down close enough that I could eventually burn you out if I have to go grindy. So we're going to go for it. It's at times like this that I start keeping cards in hand, though, especially if I think he's got the wipe. But because he was using so much discard, I don't believe he had the wipe. I believe and he didn't have enough. Like, he needed another colored mana to do it that he didn't have. So he was using his discard so frequently that I figured, you know, he probably doesn't have the wipe. He's probably trying to strip my hand to make sure that he can live long enough to eventually get the wipe. And sometimes when you're playing an aggro deck, you have to sort of figure that out. It's a gut feeling. You gotta see that if sometimes they'll hold their removal and for later on in the game after they board wipe, and if they're doing nothing, it might mean because they have the board wipe and they're ready. So you should hold back 1 or 2 creatures. So here we go into another game, and to just put this out here, I sided it in. I took out my Pillar of Flames because I didn't see any Finks. and I sided in Vine's Vastwood. I figured it'll either help me expedite my game plan, which is not a bad option, or he's got removal, and he has a lot of black, so he might have the removal, and this will help me. In retrospect, if I saw that he had more than just the black, and that that he was a Gifts deck, I probably would have taken out either my paths or my 2 bolts. I probably would have taken out 2 bolts, because I'd rather have the path in this matchup, in case he puts out some crazy creature I need to path it. So I probably would actually side out 3 bolts, and put in my extra path to exile, so I have 3 paths to exiles, and then put in my 2 Fairy Macabras. There's just a tip. If this went to game 3, that would have happened. But I do know he's a control deck, and I got a 1-lander here, and again, I'm going to keep it because I'm 1 game up. And at worst, I dwaddle, and I see what his deck's game plan is, and I can side correctly against it. That's what I figured. But I have a Burning Tree Emissary in hand, and some good stuff in hand, and like a Thalia that'll really hurt him. Draw an extra Burning Tree Emissary. So this hand, so long as I get another land, maybe in the next 2 turns, is an awesome keep. Luckily, we're an aggro deck. We can maybe get away with 1-lane handers. It's risky, but we can maybe get away with it. And I go for the Temple Garden, because I figure this can sort of like color correct me if I need to. But it's more important for me to get a green-red land out right now so that I can cast Burning Tree Emissary. And Burning Tree Emissary can be a mana fixer, man. And also Thalia. Thalia's, I figure, might be huge in this matchup. The interesting thing here is I'm just too aggro-y. I don't have time to cast the Thalia until later, and I still think it's worth it later. Now he draws the Elsh here, and when he eventually discards the Elsh through the Liliana, then it hits me that he's a Gifts deck. I know his game plan, and I'm going to I'll tell you that when I get there and explain it a little bit more thoroughly. So we got the Loom Line. I end up drawing the Stomping Grounds, exactly what I need. Big fist pump. He's not near enough to board wipe, so I'm not too worried. And I'll have at least the chance to hit him once or twice with 2 Burning Tree Emissaries, and that'll be enough to add up, I think. So I'm going to swing here because I want to make sure that I'm baiting a counter if he's got it, because I prefer my Burning Tree Emissaries to get there. He kills it, I'm like, that's fine. I will trade 2 damage for the eventual 2 damage, eventual 4 damage, eventual 7 damage of Flint Hoofbore. Good luck, sir. So he draws. And he decides that the Sphinx is more relevant. And the reason why he decides that Sphinx is more relevant than the Spellskite or the Liliana is because should he Liliana and make me discard a card? No big whoop. I kill his Liliana and move on with my life. He's also telegraphing to me if he goes to Liliana that he doesn't have a board wipe spell. It's just as simple as that. If he's wasting his time on Liliana knowing that my creatures will kill his Liliana, not worth the time. Instead, he Kitchen Finks. Again, like as I said before, Kitchen Finks is the bane of this deck. Had I a Pillar of Flame, I would not need to worry about it at all. I do not, though. But I do have a Lightning Bolt, which is almost as good. Especially since I've got the advantage here. Now I'm going to tank a little bit, because I have an option to bolt his Sphinx right now and make it a 2-1, knowing that he'll block at that point my Burning Tree Emissary and I will lose that creature. Or I can let him think that he'll be able to kill the Flint Hoofbore, kill my, quote-unquote, kill my Flint Hoofbore, but during attackers, as soon as it's declared blockers, bolt it. He gains his 2 life like he's going to have, but has an extra chump blocker. I decide that's not what I want to do, because then he could block the Flint Hoofbore if he's in the red. So the best idea right now is to get rid of that Sphinx right away. Bolt it, telegraphing that he's got the removal, quote-unquote, removal spell on me, and he's going to be able to kill my Burning Tree Emissary. Because at this point, blocking the Flint Hoofbore and getting hit for 4 is a waste. Because then I will just keep hitting him with that Flint Hoofbore. It's better to take out that repeated shock. And he's got a blocker for the Flint Hoof board if he needs it. And I cast my Loom Line because Loom Line's cool. I traded my 2/2 for a Loom Line. That's fine. I've got a Thalia. I've got a Domri. He's got the Gifts Ungiven here. He needs to get the chance to actually use it. And I've got to say you have no chance to use that. Fun. He could have waited for Gifts Ungiven, I suppose. But then he's allowing me to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage, plus maybe 4 with a Rampager. So that's 7, that's 11, that's going to drop him down to almost burn range. So even if he manages, and he wants to get the Elshinorn out there more than anything else. So he's going to try to stay alive, really, is what it is. That's fine. And what I'm going to drop here is I'm going to drop the Thalia. I've like starting to come to realize that he's a control deck, and this is when I need to start not letting him get to 5 mana. 5 mana is sort of the crux of control decks right now. Whether it's Celestial Colonnade or any other of their like bigger spells, it's generally 5 mana, even if it's Sphinx's Revelation. And he needs the 2 blue. He doesn't want to take the extra damage. I guess that's another reason why he couldn't do it, because if it was if I managed to do 11 damage to him and then he took the 3 damage, that would put him to 14 damage, in which case he was in bolt range. So, I mean, he had to survive. He was playing around my bolt, and I had plenty of burn to kill him. So it's not like it was a good call. It was a good move. He's just in a catch-22, and that's what happens with this deck. Zoo puts you in a crock pot of pressure and says, here's my stuff, how are you going to deal with it? And he ends up going for the Liliana because he can't cast the Gifts Ungiven. He can only cast the Liliana for that. You could cast Abrupt Decay, but that's not going to help him either. I will eventually just win because of that. And I'm going to discard my Domri. Let's just sort of win more at this point. I don't have the mana. Curd Ape is the thing that I can cast, definitely. Even if I get the mana, I would probably want to cast Curd Ape, although I could see the reason behind casting something else. But I can't even cast my Domri because of my Thalia. It's not a big deal. Most of my deck is creatures, so I don't really care. So we're going to swing all out. And I'm not even going to swing at his Liliana. He can keep his Liliana. If he wants to make me sacrifice a creature, I'm still going to hit him for 6 here, and that'll bring him down to 4. So with the Curd Ape, I still got good game on him. There's nothing he can do about it. So there's Curd Ape. Again, I'm saying you're at 4 life. I'm going to hit you for 4 next turn, unless you put out a chump blocker and make me sacrifice, which you have less of a chance to do because you're control deck. I mean, he's going to draw here. He's going to put out the Tectonic Edge because why not? I'm not letting him. I am not letting him do his game plan of Gifts Ungiven, because I still have this out. So he can Gifts Ungiven, but if he Gifts Ungiven, he's dead. He's just dead in the water. Plus, if he Gifts Ungiven, I still have a turn. He can't do it, so I still have a turn, even after he kills my Thalia with Abrupt Decay. And I'm going to hit him for 4 damage. He Abrupt Decays my Thalia. I still hit him for 4 damage. He's got nothing. There's just nothing he can do right here. Even if he managed to Abrupt Decay something and do what he needs to do, he'll go down to 2, and then I'd have him at bolt range. Plus, I get another swing phase because he can't cast the Gifts Ungiven. So, you know, I don't let him play his game plan. I put constant pressure on him. I read a match report somewhere where someone else had sort of a similar experience against Gifts Ungiven. You just don't want to let them play their Gifts Ungiven. So the best thing you can do is figure out a way to not let them play it. Either bluff that you have the burn spell to kill them, that you've got the pump to do what you need to do, because they're going to try to Gifts and Given at the end of your turn. So if you go ahead and you make them use a Doom Blade on your creature because you've rampaged it, or you've given it giant growth or immunogenic growth or something like that, a colossal growth, colossal might. You go ahead and you're forcing them to play spells that are not Gifts Ungiven. The only way that Gifts Ungiven can win is through its combo win, through Gifts Ungiven. Being able to separate into a pile where it can reanimate its what is that card called? Elshnorn, and wipe your team. Funny fact, I've actually played against Gift Ungiven where he's Elshnorned and he's been down to like 6 life, and my creatures turned into like 1/1s and 1/2s, and I swung all out and hit him for what, like 2, and he drops down to like 4, and I Rampager, and he drops down to like 1, and then I burn him. Like it's still very possible to win through quote unquote your board wipe. Again, we don't die to Pyroclasm, so Elshnorn is like a permanent Pyroclasm. It's still possible to win. Anywho, those are your 2 match reports. Got Geterdungrove and Gifts Ungiven. I'm gonna try to keep putting some more matches out there for you guys to see, so that you guys got video reference of how to sort of play successfully against other decks. Thanks, and see you next time.